Hello friends and welcome to Ariel's Twilight Years, how to be a really old model. I'm going to put this video up before the beginning of the year because I definitely don't want to start the year like this because I'm about to talk about some god-awful drama. Part of the reason I'm making this video is because I know that some people would have seen some of this going down on social media. That's what the young people say, isn't it? Going down on social media after I dropped a new track. Some people will have seen and some people won't understand the history at all, which I do not blame you for. Now, many of you will not be interested in the history and that is totally fine as well. But I want to tell the story so that anyone who is confused or continues to be confused in the near future will have some understanding. And also I want to extrapolate from it some sort of general principles about how I think models and producers in our industry should treat each other. I mean, how people should treat each other too, but there are some special circumstances when it comes, especially I think, to bondage modelling and production because of the duty of care we have towards each other. So I'm going to tell you a story. I'm going to try to be as brief as I can. It's not particularly fun to talk about, but I'm hoping it might be useful to some people, and at the very least it will be a permanent record of what happened so that if and when this individual does more, I will have already explained my point of view. And just in case he comes back into the industry, I'm hoping that this will at least warn models to be very cautious around him. So let's get started. I started modelling in 2003, and by around 2005 I was doing a fair amount of bondage modelling. Chimera Bondage, the producer this video is mainly about, though really he doesn't deserve a whole video, started production I think a little bit later than me. So I think I probably worked with him first around 2006 or 2007 perhaps. And his bondage was a self-bondage site. Now I was interested in that idea. I mean, self-bondage isn't my core kink. I'm a submissive, so I want people to do stuff to me. I don't want to do these things to myself. But it was close enough. And in the UK, BDSM world is a small industry, so it's not like I had dozens and dozens and dozens of producers to choose from. And so I tried to work with anyone who was working within my levels who I hadn't heard absolute horror stories about, and I hadn't heard any horror stories about him. So I went and did a first shoot with him. There was an accident at the shoot and I don't think I felt like it was a massive deal. It could have been a lot worse than it was, and I realised he was new to production and I assumed he would probably get a lot more safety conscious as time went on. I think he probably did. I certainly didn't get burned again at any of his shoots subsequently, and he was fine. He was fine in person. So I carried on working with him over the years. I might have done 10 shoots, I might have done 12 shoots with him, so it was kind of maybe once a year, a bit more than once a year. I used to have to be quite firm with him about the levels I was happy to work to, so he'd often suggest stuff I didn't want to do. But to be fair to him, he always did that in the pre-shoot communications, which I think is much better than trying to spring it on a model on the day. And it's not like he kept asking me to do the same things, so it's not like he was repeatedly pushing my levels. He'd just say, will you do this? I would say no. He'd ask me about something else, I would say no. So really this is absolutely par for the course, perfectly fine. There are producers who handle it a bit more gracefully than that and who seem to have a better sort of understanding of what levels models want to work to, but that's fine, people are different. It's a little industry, a lot of us are quite odd, including me, it's fine. I did sometimes get very odd messages from him. So on the day of the shoots, things were pretty normal. I certainly never thought, oh my god, I must get out of here, he's crazy. But I would sometimes get very odd messages from him, quite often very late at night. One time he was asking if he could come and stay over with his partner, which wasn't the sort of relationship we had, so it was quite surprising. And by the way, I've got all the receipts for all of these. I've saved all the screenshots from my DMs, but I feel uncomfortable with sharing the actual messages from someone who's identifiable. It just feels a bit below the belt and probably unnecessary at this stage. So I'm not going to, I don't think, for this video. It feels kind of more morally justified to explain what happened than to actually share someone's actual words when attached to their name. Another time, out of the blue, he accused me of not wanting to work with him because I was working with bigger producers. And I mean, in this industry, all producers are small, essentially. Like, everyone's one or two people, really. And I remember just replying, like, you just need to book me. Like, if you're upset that you've not worked with me for a while, you just have to book me. I'm not gonna pester you, like, just book me. Another time, out of nowhere, like after 4 months at least of not speaking to each other or not having any communication at all, he suddenly sent me this weird rant asking me if I'd ever lost a parent or a partner or friends, and just absolutely out of the blue. I had no idea what it was about, but it was quite hurtful because some of the things he mentioned I had, and it was just very, very weird. And he would apologise afterwards if I wrote back to say words to the effect of, like, what the hell are you talking about? And he'd explain it with a variety of excuses that, oh, I was drinking, oh, I've been going through like a difficult personal time, and he'd give me specifics of those personal situations. And so, although the actual shoots continued to be fine, I did become increasingly nervous just based on the personality he displayed in these messages. I suppose I've probably been working with him 5 or 6 years before I realised he was also doing this to other models. So other models showed me screenshots, and still, in fact, send me screenshots of stuff he's said to them, and it was just weird. It was often inappropriate. I don't think it ever got as far as feeling really threatening, but it often felt as though he thought there was a relationship that just didn't exist, good or bad, and it wasn't what I expect from people I work with. This is highly atypical. Anyway, we carried on working together. There were a couple of issues, again, in pre-shoot communications. When he asked me to do a couple of things I thought were kind of unethical, he asked me to try to match another model's performance in terms of what she'd endured, and I just generally think that's quite bad practice. Like, I don't care what another model's tolerance is. I'm trying to do a good performance on my own terms, and also I don't know how much she negotiated being paid. Some of this stuff involved my body being marked. So, for example, I wouldn't necessarily want to try to match the number of cane strokes another model took when I don't know. She might have been paid twice as much as me, or she might have had 2 weeks off to heal after the shoot. So her circumstances would be different. So I did push back a little on that, and I now think this caused him great fury that I was not aware of at the time. But these kind of difficult negotiations are part of our job. You sometimes have to talk about really personal things, really specific bits of your body you want shown or not shown. This is all part of the course. You have to talk about emotional boundaries, physical boundaries, all of this. And by and large, producers and models muddle through that without great massive fucking dramas. Anyway, roll on to April 2020. The world was in lockdown and no producers were working with any models at all in person. So I, just like a lot of us, was shooting solo at home. Luckily, I've got a husband who's in the business, so we were shooting some stuff together. And because people were kind and trying to support each other, I think, and also because people were bored, I was getting an absolute flood of custom video requests. It was lovely. And I shot one that was a bondage tutorial for a photographer I've worked with before who I really like, and he wanted me to show him how to do some basic ties. So I shot a tutorial video. I did most of the rope work on myself, but then I asked Howell to come in and tie my arms because I can't do a very attractive job of that. And I put the video up for sale, as I always do, on Clips for Sale, ManyVids. And when you do this, for people who don't know, you have to choose tags for the video so people who are looking for that kind of content can find it. And it's always a bit of a gamble because, for example, that video had me, I think, in a leotard, so I needed to tag leotard, I needed to tag bondage, I needed to tag self-bondage because all of those elements were in. I probably tagged tutorial if the website allowed me to, bare feet, all of these. And sometimes it will display, I think maybe if you, the first tag you choose will be the main tag, I think. I've never been 100% sure, but I think that's how it works. And so it was a bit of a toss-up whether I would choose leotard, self-bondage or bondage. I decided that because the majority of the time in the video was taken up doing self-bondage, it was probably more accurate to describe it as a self-bondage clip than a bondage clip because the amount of someone else tying me up in the video was shorter. So I put that video up for sale with those hashtags. Now, for a while I had noticed that apart from sending rather odd DMs late at night. Chimera Bondage also used to tweet some posts that seemed quite passive-aggressive and pointed late at night, publicly. And sometimes, I guess because it's a small industry again, sometimes I'd have an idea of who I thought they were directed towards. It would often be apropos of something another producer had recently posted. So for example, if Howell, my husband for Restrained Elegance, had just posted a photo set in the dining room, Chimera Bondage, you might suddenly see a post from him being like, well, we never shoot in shitty dining rooms, we shoot in the dungeon, or something like that. I mean, that's just a hypothetical example. This is not a real example. And I just sort of think, I think that's about us, but I'm not sure, I can't prove it. So I used to see that going past, and it made me think less of him, in the same way that the late night DMs made me think less of him, but in person, you know, he was fine. So I put this video up. The main hashtag that came up probably was self-bondage, and I would guess that at the time, just like a lot of producers, Chimera was scared of what his sales were going to do, how he was going to produce more work. It was a really frightening time commercially for loads of us, and I guess he felt upset by seeing one of the models he normally could work with shooting self-bondage for her own store rather than for his, which is an absolutely unacceptable wankery way of thinking, because no one owns any particular genre at all, ever. But I think that's probably what was going on, because the next thing I saw, and it wasn't the first time I'd thought he was getting directly at me, but it was much more obvious than previous ones. So my video went up for sale. I think it sold quite well. It did sell quite well. So he probably saw the auto tweets coming across, because we used to follow each other on Twitter, and he posted something like, and I've got the post somewhere, but it was saying, this model, not naming me, uses the hashtag self-bondage when her husband's tying her up. So I thought, well, that's pretty specific, and I had used the hashtag self-bondage, or Clips for Sale had used it, and so I remember being really hurt, because I was quite new to production still. I'd not got a whole massive library of videos. I shot customs kind of intermittently until COVID happened. I care very much about being honest in my descriptions of my work. I mean, in life generally, but certainly in the descriptions of my work. And I thought, I guess people will know he's talking about me, and hopefully they'll look at the video and realise, yeah, well, it's self-bondage and bondage, so like, what's she meant to do? But still, it was kind of hurtful. And it was on the back of me spending a decade plus shooting with him, always turning up on time and prepared with the costumes he wanted. I promoted him whenever he shot new stuff of me. I would retweet it. I recommended a lot of models to him. Howl and I invited him to our first fetish film festival, and I think our second as well, because, you know, he was part of the industry. Both of us had tried our best to do the decent thing by him. I've always thought it was my responsibility as someone who's been in the industry a decent amount of time, and obviously that's got longer as time's gone on. I've always felt like it was my responsibility to try to help anyone who's coming up in that world, whether they're models or photographers or producers. I sort of feel like we all climb on the shoulders of the people who went before us, and people were very kind to me when I started, and I've always wanted to pay that forward. So it was on the background of me, as far as I know, other than sometimes saying no to things that I didn't want to shoot, I'd just never done anything to him, and he was doing this. So I just replied publicly saying, are you talking about me? Because it seemed like the most upfront way of managing it. And then he DM'd me and said, oh no, it wasn't you. I was talking about an American model and her husband who was using the hashtag self-bondage. I mean, this is so petty, I'm embarrassed talking about it, but it's the background. So I thought, oh, that's interesting. You know, I'm going to go and search Twitter. I'm going to use the hashtag self-bondage. I'm going to search top posts. I'm going to search most recent posts. I'm going to see if I can find this American model with her husband who was using the tag self-bondage. So I did. I looked long and hard, because I always like to be sure before I challenge anyone, and no one had used the hashtag self-bondage at all, except me, him, and at the time, like I think he might have been like a gay male solo performer. That was it. That was the only thing coming up. There was no American model and husband using this hashtag. It was nonsense. So I remember I wrote back to him, and I was really upset and frightened, because back in 2020 I was much less confrontational than I am now. It's the sort of thing I found really upsetting and frightening, because I want our industry to be a nice little community. I don't want to be having fights in it. Hello, lovey. You can come through if you like. I'm making a YouTube.
I suddenly heard and thought that was probably what you would do.
You can join in if you like. At least come and sit with me if you like. With Gareth, this is a very serious subject for Gareth the Welsh orangutan to come into. But he can, because it's his gwelly. That means bed in Welsh. Hello, mate. Oes
Hello.
ti'n iawn?
Fi'n iawn, diolch.
Oh, grando. It's almost Nadolig Llawen, which is Christmas.
Amser Nadolig.
Yeah. How are you, lovey?
I'm all right.
Oh, grand. So, I'm just getting into it.
You're just getting into it. Are you just gearing up for a big old?
Yes, well, I'm in the middle. I wrote back to him and I said, I've just looked at the hashtag, I've just searched all of Twitter, I know who you were talking about, it was me, and it's really disappointing, especially at this really horrible time for everybody, not just in our industry, but, you know, across the world. This doesn't feel like the time to be kind of taking anonymised swipes at your colleagues. So I said, I'm sad to say our working relationship is over. I hoped we could just leave it at that. I certainly had no intention of talking about it publicly. There was absolutely no reason to do so. I just thought, someone who can behave like this, I don't trust him at physical shoots, even though he'd never done anything wrong at our actual shoots. I just had enough. It was too much weirdness and passive aggression, and I just thought, if you are so resentful of me shooting self-bondage for myself, that when I've put in the work, I've put in years into becoming a good rigger, being a decent self-bondage rigger. You have benefited from me being a decent self-bondage rigger. There's not a whole load of models who can suspend themselves.
Yeah, you didn't train you, did it?
No, I mean, you trained me,
Yeah.
which is very nice of you, thank you.
Welcome.
And then, you know, I ran with that and I developed some considerable
Absolutely.
skill.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it was my skill. No genre in our industry belongs to any one person. I can understand it makes you feel scared when someone is doing something well that you feel is kind of your area. Like, I get it too. If a ballet dancing model who's 6 foot turns up, I do not like it. I mean, my instinct is the same. It's to be like, oh my God, they're going to take my work. But the fact is, that's not really how it works. If you find someone in your industry who has some similar skills to you, the best thing you can do is work with them.
Yeah.
Which is what I discover if I find another model who can do ballet and is my height. I mean, what an amazing duo that is. I was happy to draw a line under it. I might have unfollowed him. I certainly didn't block him or anything. I just left it. And then a few days later, he started with the passive aggressive tweets again, very clearly about me, and I don't remember them all, but I remember the one that kind of pushed me over the edge, which was when he, without naming me, but of course it was very clear to me who he was talking about, he said that there was a model who makes a habit of making mistakes in videos on purpose to ruin the videos. And I just thought, you absolute twat. Because even if I was that unprofessional, I wanted other people to get bad results from working with me. I don't get to go home until everything's shot.
Yes.
And his days, let me tell you, were fucking long because he never took lunch breaks. It was really tiring. And that's fine. Like, that's reasonable. But I couldn't go home until I'd shot however many videos he wanted to get for the day. So the idea of fucking one up deliberately so we'd have to shoot it again, just like, for God's sake. And also, my vanity wouldn't allow me to do that. Even if I didn't give a damn about the producer getting a good product, I care about whether my fans think I've completely lost it or not.
And you wouldn't get any more money for messing this up.
Well, no, certainly. I mean, someone wouldn't book me again, would they?
No.
Like, just, this is just
not a
not,
thing.
it's just
Yeah,
not.
It's not a thing.
And I guess because of the other things he'd said, I felt like, I think there's a reasonable expectation that people will think he's talking about me, especially because actually he had a very small pool of models because it's quite specialist work, and presumably because he'd pissed off so many from sending ridiculous drunk texts or whatever. Oh yes, and he blocked me. Which I guess meant he thought that he could say this stuff with impunity. So I went onto my other account that I had at the time and responded to him, and whereupon he deleted his tweets, wrote to me and apologised, and then asked me to take down my replies to him. And I thought, at the time I remember just thinking, absolutely not. He's going to do this again, and I want there to be a record that I have challenged him, because he won't keep the record up because he knows he's done something wrong, but I absolutely must. So, but on the other hand, no one's going to see replies to a tweet that no longer exists. So I thought, okay, well, I will also block him because I don't want to see the stuff he's saying. Like, I don't want to know if he continues doing this. This is just horrible. So he blocked me, I blocked him. And in the intervening years, because it's now been 5 years since that happened, every so often fans will say to me, oh, I'm really sorry, Chimera's retired, because he has now retired, which made me think, okay, this is definitely done now. He's not going to come back being crazy because he's retired. Like, he's not going to care if I shoot self-bondage because he's stopped producing. So fans would say nice things about my work with Chimera, and I would say thank you very much, and I would not say, oh my God, that twat, because there is no percentage in it, and that's an expression I learned from you. It's just fine. I don't want to mar their pleasure in a video they like by saying there was a whole load of drama behind the scenes. The shoots themselves were perfectly fine. It's fine. And then a few days ago, he tweeted about me again. Now, presumably there have been several of these over the years and I have been blissfully unaware, but this time someone showed me. And this time it was libelous. I've just hired 2 libel lawyers recently to work through some of my writing work with me, so I've got a better working understanding of the law in this regard than I've ever had before. So I'm pretty certain this absolutely constitutes libel because he used my name, and I will show you this screenshot because this was public. I think that's fair enough. Here it is. So the inference that I can't pay my bills is potentially quite damaging to me professionally because I don't want people to think that I'm really struggling. I don't want anyone to feel guilty about buying my hardcore stuff. I don't want them thinking that I need the money, that they are kind of buying someone's work when that person is under duress. I mean, it could damage me a little. And also the accusation that I had claimed that I would never do porn, and that's not true. I mean, what I was shooting with him was porn. He might have wanted to shoot more hardcore porn with me, but it is my prerogative. Like, I don't shoot that stuff actually with anyone. I shoot it on my own. If I'm doing the hardcore stuff that I do, I like to be in my bedroom by myself, choosing the camera angles and having control over the edit. I'm not interested in doing it with other people. But that has never been for me about thinking that I'm somehow better than people shooting porn. Like, what I shoot throughout my career has often been pornographic because the end use is orgasms. Like, whether or not you are doing something explicit or penetrative, if the end use is people wanking to it, then it's porn, isn't it? If that's the intended use. I clearly wasn't going to privately challenge him over this, so I publicly challenged him. I posted what he'd said, whereupon he said his account had been cloned. So,
It's not a thing.
I don't even know what he means.
He means that we were looking at somebody who had cleverly copied all his old tweets, but this one new tweet was some random malicious Nigerian scammer.
Again, I searched. There is no one. There is, or at least at the time of filming this, was nobody pretending to be Chimera Bondage on Twitter posting anything. And the tweet had his very distinctive spelling errors in it. So if there was someone pretending to be him on a secret account no one can find, but yet somehow someone managed to stumble across, they would be deliberately copying his spelling errors. And it would be someone who weirdly had the same problem with me, specifically me, that he had. So it seems quite unlikely. Anyway, I started looking into potentially taking legal action, but I thought the first thing to do is to make sure I publicly refute this. I hope no one is going to have seen that tweet and think, oh God, Ariel Anderson is shooting with dildos because she can't pay her mortgage. But I don't want people to think that. I work really hard. I've worked hard enough to have 5 mortgages, which doesn't sound like an achievement, does it? But actually, I'm rather proud of it.
Yeah, I remember the ones that you've got that don't have a mortgage at all.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah. I've worked very hard for a very long time with a really quite unpleasant progressive medical condition, and I don't want people to think that after all of that work I am reduced to shooting stuff I don't want to shoot because I'm poor. Like, that is not good for me. And also it's really not good for me to be seen, if anyone were to believe this, to believe that I'm in some way anti-porn, because
Duh.
this is the house that porn built.
Yes. Yes. We shoot porn.
So then he changed his story and said that it was actually someone who'd hacked into his account and was posting stuff that magically he couldn't see, which makes even less sense, if anything.
Yes.
As
I said, like, it's a whole new behaviour that Twitter has never previously exhibited.
Just because
Programmed
why?
just for him.
And why
Why?
would you?
Why would you? Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Who's doing it? Why are they doing it? What?
So it's rubbish. It's nonsense. Rubbish. And it's him squirming away, as he has before, with various excuses. In the past, those excuses have been, oh, I was drunk, or oh, I'm going through personal crises. Right now, it wasn't me, and he will probably circle back to one of these other excuses. And so then today, he posted an apology, which I had asked for, both for me and for all the other people he's done this to, because believe me, there are plenty of other. And given that he didn't work with many models,
yes,
there are a lot of models with stories which are not good. So now he's apologising, but saying he definitely doesn't remember posting it, and he still thinks he was cloned, which means, what I take from this is he could do this again because he's not in control of whether he does it or not. And he says, oh yes, it's because I get drunk and I do stupid things and delete them. But this thing that's deleted, it wasn't me deleting it, obviously. So he will do this again because he's been doing this for a long time and he clearly isn't going to take control of his drinking. If that's what's making him do it, it seems to me you should stop drinking, but clearly he has not stopped drinking, so it's very likely he will post about me more. One of the things he says in his apology/excuse is that he's tried really hard not to say horrible things about me. And I don't know about you, but I don't really have to, on a daily basis, try hard not to say horrible things about people online.
Especially not people that I stopped working with like 35 years ago.
Especially not, I don't have to go, oh God, I mustn't say anything libelous today about some random person I've not seen for 6 years. It's very odd and I'm very annoyed. But really, what I suppose I would like to conclude from this is that I don't suppose he'll come back into the industry, probably because he has retired. If he does in the future, and you're a model listening to this in the future, I would just say, just tread really carefully, because one of the things he said about me back in 2020 was that he had kept all the audio recordings of the shoots so that when I didn't know I was being recorded for audio, he could kind of use stuff that I'd said against me. That would be illegal. If they didn't know they were being recorded, to then publish it would be illegal, in the UK at least. And he probably wouldn't do that because I'm assuming he doesn't want to be prosecuted. But if someone says things like that, I'm not sure they're really a safe person for you to get naked and tied up with. Models take a lot of risks in this particular industry. We risk our literal lives when we do bondage because there's a non-zero risk to this. We certainly risk our physical health, we risk our reputation, and we risk people misusing the content after we've shot it to represent us in ways that we didn't agree to. If you are a model in the future watching this, I would just say proceed with a great deal of caution.
At the very least, prepare for an inordinate amount of drama.
Yeah. And the other thing I'd say is that these days, since COVID and since all the platforms beginning to make it very easy for models to work without producers, I really want models and producers to respect each other. Once upon a time, men had most of the financial power in this industry, and sometimes they exploited the women that they hired. And now women have a lot more of that financial power, and some of the male traditional producers are really resentful of that. And I can understand that. It must be painful, especially if you didn't marry a model, because then you can't profit from it.
Yeah, you can't have the swings and roundabouts.
And I think that in this case, that's one of the things that's at play. I imagine, and it's always really difficult talking about why someone might resent you because it feels like you're congratulating yourself. But I can see from the outside, because I remember seeing couples who were within this industry when I wasn't with someone within the industry. And I remember I worked with Dominic Wolf and his wife, who was an ex-bondage model. And I do remember thinking, gosh, that's like, kind of living the dream. And I know very nice people have said that to us sometimes, and I do see that being in the same industry as your partner is lovely because of the level of understanding you can have, and obviously sexual compatibility, that's really nice as well. And it's not simple because also if something goes catastrophically wrong with our industry,
we're both in the frame. Yes.
Yeah. But I can see why you might be resentful, especially during COVID when we were able to keep producing.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
And everything else screeched to a halt.
Yes.
So
we were very lucky.
I can totally understand it. But I think that this industry works best when we collaborate and when we have a collaborative approach. And some of my very best friends in this whole industry are male traditional producers. I married one of them, I married one of you.
Those people.
If we can trust each other, everything's better. Everything's better for us because producers will still have models who are willing to work with them, which is a problem if you make yourself this unlikable and this frightening. Models will have riggers and producers and photographers to help them produce stuff. And fans will get work from people who are having a good time. And that is almost always the way to produce better work. Other than that, the specific thing he tried to do to me, which was slut-shaming me for producing penetrative content, was something he shoots too. I'd never shot it with him, but he'd shot plenty of vaginal and anal penetration with other models. It had never occurred to me to think badly of him for it at all. And this is not the first time it's happened to me, that a producer who shoots models doing that stuff will slut-shame me for shooting myself doing that stuff. And I just think the cognitive dissonance of it is just dizzying.
Rank hypocrisy.
That if you honestly think a woman is degrading or defiling or humiliating herself by shooting this stuff of herself, then isn't that what you're doing to her too? And if you think it's okay to shoot the content that you do, how can you not see it as totally acceptable for her to shoot it in her own bedroom? That sort of slut shaming is something we see a lot of in this industry, and we see it from people outside our industry, and I understand that. But when it's from the inside, when it's from people we've actually worked with, it's just
despicable.
There's no excuse for it. And if you happen to be a BDSM producer or any kind of porn producer watching this video, and that's what you think of the models who trust you, who come to your location, take off their clothes, let you tie them up, all of that stuff, if you actually think that there's something wrong with us for doing that, then you should get out of the industry. It's not for you. The porn industry is for people who can respect other pornographers. If you can't do that, you're best out of it. Which he is, and I think it would probably be better for everyone if he stayed out, but if he does come back, please proceed with a great deal of caution, and you're always welcome to get in touch with me about this or any other issue if you're a model, and I will always prioritise responding to you. Thanks as always for watching. This is incredibly long. Happy almost New Year. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye.